This is episode 9, I believe, of the No BS SMP podcast. My name is David Hoffer. I'm here with my boy Magic Mike. What's up? And Paul Clark. And today we have a special guest. His name is Troy. He has been in the ink manufacturing industry for quite a while. I'm gonna let him do the introduction and tell us a little bit about himself because it's quite impressive. So Troy, welcome. We got a lot of questions for you today, buddy. So get ready.
Yeah, cool. Well, my name's Troy Cunningham. At this point, I've worked officially in the tattoo industry, exclusively in the pigment manufacturing side for about 13 years. But before that, I grew up in the tattoo business. My mom started tattooing in the early 2000s and kind of got to grow up alongside it and see all the different eras through the early 2000s, 2010s. And that's started working officially in the business at 2013 when I got sick and tired of being a retail manager. So said yes at the right time and kept on saying yes at the right time and ended up where I'm at. But was formerly at one of the biggest ink manufacturers in the world. I can keep them unnamed for, because they probably would want me to. But now I'm over at another growing ink company called Industry Inks. Smaller family-owned business. We're doing some pretty cool, innovative stuff in the ink world, and just a long time looking at this kind of stuff. So it's always an interesting chat when people want to know more.
And we want to know more.
Yes, because I don't know if have you seen much of the SMP world, Troy, like what we've been up to and stuff like that. A lot of people who are from the tattoo community and from the tattoo industry, when they look at us, there's laughter involved normally because of because a lot of the terminology, like, hey, check out my special pigment, what does not go blue, and it's designed for the scalp. And I've been really excited to chat to you because all that logic has come from a marketing perspective, just to sell like a thimble of pigment for like $64 to just manipulate the market. So it's interesting. What are your thoughts on the SMP world from a quick look into what we're up to?
Yeah, so I mean, the SMP world is interesting. A lot of my experience around that is nebulous to the PMU industry as a whole, and I have always seen SMP as kind of like a subset of the greater PMU business, right? And I had the opportunity to go out and do a couple PMU conventions actually in the past, and it was, man, what a different experience from the tattoo industry, simply just the PMU world. It's funny. I've explained it to a few people that it's I did the Vegas PMU show, by the way, so like one of the more premier events, I guess, that's getting some of the biggest names in that industry all together at the same time, right? So I would say that kind of gave me a pretty good cross section of what the industry is like, or at least what the industry is like and wants you to perceive it as, And I've explained to a couple people that it was like a crossover of like an MLM kind of symposium and a real estate conference, if that makes sense. It was, and not to be too insulting, right? But there was definitely a huge knowledge gap about technique, about product, about terminology, just in general across the board. Like I think we showed up there at the time to unveil a new machine, and some of the PMU pigments that we had already had going for some time, but it was kind of getting that face to face, and seeing what it was like as a tattoo ink manufacturer stepping into the PMU world. And the lack of knowledge was the most startling first wave, right? And I mean, I can't count how many ladies, bless their hearts, right? But they came up and they're like, so my mentor told me that I have to run my machine at 8 speed. And I was just like, just blank stare going, okay, what do you mean? What is that? Do you mean volts? Like, is it, because if that's the case, then no, that thing's screaming, like for what you're doing, And it seemed like there was
when they said 8 speed, I was kind of just confused, right? I'm like, well, is that volts? What do you mean, And it was just, it was very clear to me that there's just like a complete lack of knowledge, and it seemed like a very fly by night kind of operation, that there was more of an interest in getting more people into the game than there was actually doing what you're supposed to do. Right. Like that it seemed like a huge, and that's why I drew the MLM parallel, that it was like, oh, if you like what I do, you can do it too. And it's like, no, you probably can't, like you're doing all of the marketing, all of the business management side of what made you successful. And you're just trying to get some quick cash by training people on a 2-day, 3-day course to then walk in and just trip over the threshold and fall on their face, right?
And by the way, everybody, we haven't prepped Troy to say all this stuff. This is exactly what we're going through, and he saw it already on the outside.
Yeah, you didn't prep me. I'm just already an asshole.
So you're here with 3 other assholes too.
You fit right in here in this crowd.
Fair enough. Yeah, no. So I mean, in the cross section is, I guess I got some more experience working alongside David for a brief period of time when he was developing some SMP pigments, and seeing what he wanted to put into it versus what the standard was in the greater breadth of the industry was pretty refreshing, right? That it was like, hey, we're trying to put, a good foot forward here and just say what it is, and charge an honest price for it, which, I mean, that's kind of my core business ethos to begin with, is it's like, good product, honest price, and just be straightforward, like lead with clarity. That's what I always like, so David was actually kind enough too to give me some prep for this one and sent me some, the companies will be unnamed, but a few big players in the SMP world, and their, links to their websites, their MSDS sheets, and I made some notes for myself that were pretty interesting on this one, but we can kind of dive into that when we get more into, like the nuts and bolts of it.
What's right now? I've got my swimming trunks on. Let's go.
Yeah.
So is traditional tattooing similar, the same, or not at all as SMP ink? We probably
Very
know
similar.
the answer, but tell us.
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. I would say that a lot of tattoo inks go the route of having a lot less additives and a lot less obfuscation of what's actually in that bottle, if that makes sense.
Okay. And so the reason why we gave you them data sheets as well for you to look at, we wanted to see if something is like copy and paste off a tattoo bottle. And because in our liner world, it's what we get is that this SMP pigment is specially designed for scalps, right? And,
Sure.
You come from the tattoo world. Most of us do. We don't see how that is feasible and how is that achievable. So we were just wondering, as you was going through the data sheets, did anything stand out like, whoa, this pigment, there's something special? Or is it like, I've seen this sort of stuff millions of times on millions of tattoo products? Is that what you've come across?
Yeah, besides the ingredients being misspelled as well.
Yeah.
There is that. There definitely is that. I guess, Paul, it's more the latter in that.
Yeah.
That there's really not a whole lot that's creative in it outside of maybe 2 of the companies, or one of the companies specifically. But I have my suspicions that the other additives that they're using don't actually do anything, and it's just enough of a percentage to say it's in the bottle to say that it's in there and be able to go, oh, but this could have this effect, right? Which maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And to kind of like loop back to, you said that a lot of the advertising ethos is these are pigments specifically designed for the scalp, right? Well, that's just you saying in a creative way that they're designed to be used in skin.
Yeah.
And coming from the tattoo world, one of the biggest things you have to understand when you get into tattooing is, whilst we are completely covered in skin, yes, there are different zones and sectors on the body that perform differently, right? Not all of your skin is the same type of skin or the same kind of key critical core makeup, right? So the top of your head is not the same as your forearms, you know, and to use the example that's always good, right, is on your arm specifically, the outside here that's always getting the wear and tear, or your elbow is a different type of skin makeup than your forearm, than the inside of your forearm, and especially different than right here on the inside of your arm. This stuff might as well be paper, right? By comparison. So a lot of what they're missing the mark on is it's not necessarily the pigment that needs to be redesigned for the different types of skin. It's the technique. You know, it's the technique, it's the way to apply it, it's how you run your machine, it's how you tune your machine. And, you know, it is marketing. It's marketing stuff to begin with, right? Because you can sell someone marketing, you can sell someone a pretty idea that this thing is going to change the game for them and make their life easier or their pursuit and their process easier, but you can't sell them these. You know, like there's a reason that you guys are good at what you do, and it's technique.
Yes.
That's what supersedes everything. You know, it's the old the parallel I like to draw for a lot of people is to the music business, right? Because I'm a big guitar nerd. So you can build the same clone as the guitar that Eddie Van Halen used. You can copy the pickups. You can get, you know, you can spend $10,000 and $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 buying all the equipment that he used, the real vintage stuff. You're still not going to have these, and you're not going to have this, you know. So that's where the gap really is in a lot of stuff. Is it's all technique, it's all practice and performance based, you know. But yeah, to kind of dive deeper on the formulation, I'm going to make this the safe and fair assumption here because the greater breadth of what I've seen in the SMP world is all black pigment based, right? Yeah. There are a few outliers that I think I saw. There was like the Follicule brand had some browns. And there were a couple others that got into like, well, this is for, you know, your blondes, your redheads, things like
ginger,
that. You know? Yeah, ginger. Yeah, sure. It's the same, but the greater breadth is all black, right? So the funniest thing was a couple of the MSDS sheets I looked at said, went under the pigment category, it said proprietary. And I just, in my head, I'm like, sure, man, that's CI 77266. That's carbon black. That's what it is. I know that's what it is. There's no way it can't be that. There's one way you can make it, right? And I think the other funny one that I saw was it was a charcoal based black, and it's like, sure, you know, sure, I guess, you know, but can you, without a shadow of a doubt, tell me that you either made that charcoal yourself and controlled the process all the way down to the final mixture, or you somehow find a sourcing house that will let you control what exactly they're putting into that down to what the actual organic compounds were that were burnt to make that carbon, you know? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's all carbon black. And carbon black is all under the same unifying CI of 77266. There's no way you can avoid that. The confusing part gets into that is just a CI number that dictates something is carbon black. That doesn't dictate what production house you bought it from, what kind of color shift it's going to have, you know, because there are plenty of different carbon blacks from plenty of different suppliers that all have to share that same unifying number because all that is dictating is this is what that is.
So that's the base, that's what you're saying, Trey, right? So that number is the base of the carbon black?
Yeah, that's your basic carbon black mixture,
but
right?
Is it it's important, let me ask, is it important, I'm assuming, to know where that is coming from? Where is it sourced from?
It can be, but 9 times out of 10, no one's going to tell you.
Okay.
But that is also one of the other little funny facts is you're more than likely buying a pre-dispersion. And I'm going to safely assume most of these companies are buying a pre-dispersion because, I mean, the equipment alone to do your own dispersions and then from there mix into your final mixtures. I mean, you're talking about a probably, you know, $70,000 to $100,000 investment just on the machinery alone.
Not in SMP. You won't get that in SMP.
Let alone knowing how to use it, you know, because it is a science. It's a magic. It's an art, right? You know, the company that I work at now, I'm like to watch our like owner and head mixologist mix stuff. It's like, you know, it's an artist at work. It has all the nuances of being an artist. So I would call it an art, right? But it's I like to tell people there's not too many ways to skin a cat and making black pigment, you know. Really what it's going to come down to is how much actual pigment is in that. What other additives are used to, you know, dictate your viscosity or kind of manipulate the viscosity, and then what types of other things like a humectant or something are in there to kind of mess with your brain a little bit is what I call it, right? So a lot of people in the PMU and SMP world, from what I've heard, they always complain about inks drying out, right, while they're doing their process. Or they complain that, oh, this one feels too thin or this one feels too thick. Well, adding things like a viscosity manipulator or a humectant are going to make that not dry out, and they're going to make it not feel like it's too viscous or too thin, right? It's going to have like some like lubricity to it that you can kind of like, if you pour it in your fingers, you're going to be like, oh, that's like, it's not oily, but it's not just water, right?
Yeah. And would that have any significant impact on how it holds in the skin? So say, for instance, you make something less runny. Would making it less runny have a significant impact compared to a pigment that is runny, what goes into the skin? Or is it just basically it's modified for the user to be user-friendly rather than the results?
Yes and no. But I think you already highlighted probably what I'm going to say. And it's technique based, being able to get it to stay and hold in skin. So it's really like how your hand speed works, what you're comfortable with, that some of those things are going to change. I'm highly skeptical, and I don't believe that any of that is going to matter about the heal out process necessarily, outside of technique superseding it, right? Because I mean, if you beat the hell out of someone's skin, it's not going to heal as good as if you kind of went over with the gentlest hand and it's just in there, it's going to stay, right? But really, the only thing that's going to stay in your skin is the actual pigment itself. You know, those particles are too big to move back out of your skin. All the other additives and everything are either going to push right back out during the tattoo process, or they're going to actually get filtered out just in your body, right? But and I'm sure you guys know this, but the way that the pigment stays in your skin is basically based around your immune system and your white blood cells, right? And it's the macrophages in your white blood cells that encapsulate that ink, and then they die, and then something else encapsulates it, and it just stays there, right? So that's kind of how that works. But everything else is just going to be mobile, and it's going to move on.
So Troy, what comes from the fact when people say that the ink, tattoo ink, will turn blue eventually? Because SMP ink doesn't turn blue.
That's the claim.
Is it a mixture with water? When practitioners mix the ink with water, would that affect it going blue, or is it going too dark on a light skin, or too light on a light skin? That's what turns it blue.
Really, the biggest thing is going to be what the actual undertone of the carbon black base that they're using is already going to do. You know, so if it's a blue black or a cooler undertone of the actual carbon black pigment they're using, it's going to go blue objectively no matter what. It's just going to look more profound based on their skin tone and what their mass tone and undertone of their skin is, right? So that's why it's going to look more profound on some people, and other folks it's just going to look completely neutral and normal, right? So that's
diluting it with water doesn't affect it, right?
No, diluting with water doesn't really affect it. It would have to be, diluting with water does basically only one thing, and that's dilute it, right? And at that point, you're making a gray wash, essentially, so you're just dissipating out what the concentration of carbon black is to the percentage of that total mixture, and that's how you're lightening out everything, right? So, unless your water supply or your distilled water that you got somehow has some type of blue tinting in it, which I'm doubtful of, it's not really going to change any of it, But there's been all kinds of tricks over the years that if someone couldn't sort something out with a black base, the old school trick was just to add violet to it.
Yeah, that leads me beautifully onto the next question I had with yours. Is so a lot of people in the SMP world are now kind of adding new products. So if you add 2 drops of orange, this will take out the blue hue. If you add tears of a unicorn, it will stop fading for times and times. So what we hear is like 2 drops of brown, 2 drops of orange here and there in different skin tones. Have you come across that theory in the tattoo world? And part of that is, does that affect really the actual outcome of the pigment going into the skin?
Yeah, no, it works. It can work. But it's really going to be dependent of that person's skin tone, you know?
Yes.
Because you can go too extreme and it's going to look like, I mean, for the pursuit that you guys are after, it's going to not look like hair anymore. It's going to look like a weird birthmark or a stain on their skin at a certain point, right? So it's more of like the nuance and the control of knowing how to do that more than anything. But if you're, I'm assuming they're also dictating that you're doing these mixtures in an actual ink cap, right? So at a very small scale.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, you're affecting it a decent amount, you know, at that
So,
rate.
because a lot of people say, like, if you're working on my skin tone, instead of just using a carbon-based black pigment, if you add 2 drops of orange in there, that will take away the blue hue. Now, I've experimented with this and I've not seen any real concrete evidence. But what makes me nervous to continue doing that, just to be safe, is I don't know how that ages. I don't know if the black gets overpowered by the orange or the orange changes it down the line.
So what's going to happen down the line is based around light fastness of the pigments themselves. Right. And it's pretty easy research you can do as well, is if you know what the CI numbers, you can actually probably look up their light fastness rating. But, you know, we have, you know, for the last couple companies I've been with, we have looked into that as well. And it was more nebulous around in the tattoo world. Everyone always would say that there is a magical disappearing orange, you know, and it's a specific type of orange pigment. And it's pretty widely used in the tattoo industry, but it will eventually fade out. And that's because, you know, it's certain oranges, certain yellows that they just don't have high enough of a light fastness. So over time, UV radiation, depending on how well you take care of your skin, that's going to fade down, but the other stuff's going to stay, right? So you have to think in that same layer, because, you know, you're not layering the orange. It's not the black with the orange on top of it with the brown on top of it. That's all in the same mesh layer, right? So if the light fastness of one of those components disappears, what are you going to see? You're going to see the other stuff that has a higher light fastness, you know? So if you're taking a carbon black and you're mixing in an orange or a yellow or a brown, but then the orange disappears in 5 or 6 years, it's just going to be a black-brown mixture now, you know? So it may not match what they're really going after, you know? Or maybe it will. Maybe they move to Florida and they look like beef jerky all the time. You know? They tan, they don't care anymore. It's like, you know, it's the same as when you see people. I mean, years ago, I had this guy show up. It was literally in Florida at a tattoo convention, and he's like, he just shows up and he puts his arms up and he's like, "Hey man, I got a question for you." He's like, "Why doesn't any of my like tattoo ink stay strong?" And I look at him and I'm like, "Well, dude, you got to stay out of the sun." Like, you know, I'm looking at all your tattoos through like, you know, like you just increased the Fitzpatrick scale of your skin by like what, 4 or 5 numbers here, bud? Like, of course it doesn't look the same. That's why
like
the
a
blue in
Gucci
your
bag.
arms looks green. You know, it's just what it is, right? So it's, you know.
You know what, Troy? It's a common thing that we were all taught, and the narrative was that SMP ink is different than tattoo ink because SMP ink doesn't turn blue and tattoo ink does. So that's where we've had these conversations about now these people that claim that their ink doesn't turn blue, they just put in a neutralizer. So number one, is there any fact that there is a difference between SMP ink and tattoo ink? And if it was, why wouldn't tattooers just use SMP ink? Because if it's not going to turn blue, I don't want my black tattoos to turn blue. That and the second question is, I've heard some rumors that someone's going to come up with an ink that doesn't migrate. I don't know if that's at all possible because it seems like it has to do with your skin. Is that even possible? So if you can answer those two questions.
Oh man. So I guess first question is to not ruffle too many feathers and blow up the entire VIG, right? You know,
Please do.
Please do.
There is, on a pure ingredient level, there isn't a huge difference.
Okay.
There really isn't. It's more or less the same thing. It's down to the dilution percentages, which is another one of the notes that I actually put on this sheet was severe dilution percentage. And there was one of them that was selling for around $76 US for a half-ounce bottle. And when I reviewed their MSDS sheet, essentially you have to, in an MSDS sheet, you have to put what your minimum and maximum concentration would be of any ingredient in your list of ingredients, and they all have to line up to 100%, right? So one of them was claiming that there's 77266 carbon black, which is actually, I went down the pipeline and was like looking up all their CI numbers in it, and they also had mislabeled a couple, which is the next note on the list. But severe dilution percentage of 1 to 5% carbon black by volume in a half-ounce bottle, which at that rate, you're looking at 1.3 milliliters of actual pigment per half-ounce bottle or 30 milliliter mixture, right? So essentially, you're paying more or less for 80% water, 20% of, I didn't make a note on what their humectant or their other dilution agents was, but it was essentially just another filler like a glycerin or something. But all that's going to do is add lubricity, and it's completely color neutral, right? So it's doing nothing. 1 to 5%, so 1.3 milliliters of actual carbon black per that mixture. That would be the lightest gray wash I've ever seen. You know, it's kind of like it's the LaCroix of gray wash, if you will. Right? So, you know, that's a toughie for me, you know, as just kind of wanting to do honest business. Because I mean, I'll just use the company I'm at right now for a reference, but one of our stronger black pigments is 91% carbon black.
Whoa.
You know, now completely different pursuit. But if you want to split hairs on it, right, we can go down to what the extra soft or the lightest gray wash is. And that one's still around 20% carbon black. You know, and that one is
how much can you get it for $75?
From me? Yeah. Oh, shoot, man, $75. I can probably send you about a half gallon.
Just comes out of a hose. Like, how much do you want, man?
Yeah.
Hey, guys,
maybe not a half gallon, but
I'm working on the labels right now. We're going to start to sell that stuff.
Yeah, one of our 8-ounce bottles of like a full concentrate is right around $60.
Okay.
Can you just repeat the ounce for our viewers at home? Because they probably just hit the floor in pure faint and anger.
Yeah.
8 ounce.
Yeah, 8 ounce. Yep, 8 ounce, right around $60, and that's full concentration. You know, it's going to be a bit cheaper for our gray washes and things like that. Now, you know, just bear in mind, right? We're still making money on that. You know, I'm not running a charity service here, so
yeah.
Here, I'm gonna grab my bottle of ink right now.
It's blue.
Yeah, it is. That is a blue black for sure. And so, like, I guess, did I answer your second question, David?
No, about the claim that there is going to be a pigment, or there can be a pigment that does not ink that doesn't migrate.
No, I don't believe them.
Okay.
And simply because you're essentially manipulating how your biology, your body already works, right? And if that is the case, would you want to do that?
Yeah, no.
You know, because now we're in the case of almost calling it a prosthesis or like a medical implant at that point, right? Like, would you want that to happen? You know, because it's just going to look unnatural over time, right? Because your skin's not always going to stay static, you know, and that's something that I know in the SMP world specifically, you guys account for. That your hairline, as it's dictated right now, should not be your hairline forever, right? There is going to be natural aging. Your face skin is going to go slack. You know, there's just things are going to move around. Things are going to change. So if you have this immovable mass in your guys' context, would you want that? Would you want to be like 85 years old and looking like you have a black toupee on? You know?
There's a clientele out there for it.
Okay, yeah, true, I guess. Yeah. But, you know, end of the day, I don't believe it. And if it were to exist, it's probably not something I'm going to be voluntarily putting in my body. But, you know, it's the same boat as the magic ink stuff too, right? The color change, you know, which is really only like a UV on off switch.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, great that you could do that.
But what's in it?
What's in it, but what is it for? You know, who's that for? You know, it's the same in the tattoo business that, like, I do a lot of tattoo conventions. I've done a ton over the years. There's always the people that come up to the booth and they go, hey, do y'all make that glow in the dark ink? You know, and well, first wave, it's not glow in the dark, it's UV reactive, you know, and two, I usually ask them, well, how often are you under a black light? You know? Exactly, right? Yeah, I mean, if you go cosmic bowling once a week, sure, I guess maybe you're in the demographic that would really be enjoying that. But, you know, for the breadth of the business, it's like, you know, are you answering, you know, for a lot of this stuff is like, are you making a solution for a question that hasn't been asked, you know?
Yeah.
That's
kind of the long and the short of that one.
Well,
but yeah, no, don't believe them. Don't believe them.
Mike likes to go to a lot of raves, so he'd be down for that UV reactant ink. That would be dope.
I wouldn't be surprised if you turned a black guy and he's got a skull face already.
Yeah. Well, so it had like kind of a negative stigma about it forever, but really, if you break it down, the UV reactive substances in those are all natural. So probably not going to see any negative side effects from it. It's just not necessarily going to hold as well as other pigments over time, you know? So it's one of those funky things. I'm excited about this one though. So let me skip down my list of notes. The same company that was maximizing 5% dilution of carbon black in their MSDS, they also had the carbon black section mislabeled with the wrong CAS number. And oddly enough, it was tied to an FD&C color, which is food dyes and colorants. And it was FD&C number 6, which is yellow 6, which is also in this Gatorade that I'm drinking right now.
And Kool-Aid.
So if you're thirsty, you could always reach for the pigment as well then.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is that if I'm assuming they're using that FD&C yellow 6 to counteract the bluing, right? But FD&C colors are going to filter right out of your body. They're not going to stay, you know, especially if they don't have a crazy kind of binder with them, you know. So if you're not using it in like a super thick, like titanium dioxide or white base, it's probably just going to be filtered right out of your body immediately. And does that do anything in the long run? My immediate response would be no. So, yeah. Yeah, and that same brand also used additives like biotin as well, which I assume...
What's biotin?
I know that's a vitamin people use for hair growth and
Biotin.
nails.
Yeah.
Nails, hair, and skin.
Yep. Which is, I assume they are purporting that it helps with scalp health in the long run, but the percentage of it in there is going to do nothing outside of you taking a biotin tablet once a day, right? So, yeah. And then the last note I had was just crazy high pricing on mixtures that are essentially gray wash. You can edit that one out if it's too inflammatory.
No. This show is called the No BS podcast for a reason.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm in the right place then.
Yes, you are, mate. So it's mad because, you know, from what I'm hearing, they've got this pigment these people have, and this could be the pigment, and this could be the exact same pigment, and they go, you know what? Let's just throw this a little bit of something in there so we can call it something different. Is that what you're finding? Is that they're just adding stuff so they can say that it's different from tattoo pigment, but actually it's not, because 90% of the structure is a tattoo carbon black pigment, but they're throwing some yellow in there, which is a small percentage, which has no significant impact already, but they're doing it just for like almost marketing. Would you say that's a fair assumption?
Yeah, no, I would say it's mostly for marketing. But actually how they get in there is, you know, I mean, at least they're honest enough to put the actual stuff in the bottle. you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that I'm saying this also without having tested any of them, or like, you know, you could, like, I mean, anyone can really do it, right? You can buy these things and send them to a chemical testing company and have them do it. I mean, it costs a small fortune to do that, but you could do it if you want, and they'll tell you what's in it. You know, they'll blow it apart and be like, oh yeah, we've identified these 7 substances, and that's likely what's in there. You know.
So please send your donations to the No BS SMP podcast for part 2.
Yeah, right.
And I think at the end of the day, we're not here to just blast everybody. We don't need to put money into this just to prove everybody wrong. But it gets kind of frustrating for us because we see a new ink, or they call it pigment, every day. There's a new one that pops up, and we know why it's done. It's done because it's a way for them to sell their own ink to their own students. Because the training is quick, and hey, if I'm a trainer, I'm just going to sell you my products. So it's the business side of it makes sense, but it's so cringy. And when you tell everybody that it's different than what it really is, you got to be honest and transparent. And that's what we're trying to do, bring back the honesty and the transparency to this stuff so people can actually be successful, not waste all their money on an overpriced product that is no different than where it originally came from, and that's tattoo manufacturing.
I saw something damaging a couple of weeks ago where an SMP artist was selling their pigment, and they say our pigment does not turn blue, right? And I felt a bit anxious that day. I was like, I'm gonna comment on this, and you guys saw the screenshots I sent you, and I was like, okay, right. So if I just open that bottle, filled it up with my needle, and went pure black on my ankle, which is pasty as shit, right? You're telling me that won't turn blue? And he was going, basically, to cut a long story short, he would not admit that would turn blue. And he kept on phrasing it like, no, if you do that, then clearly you're not a very good SMP artist. And I was like, no, you're not answering my question. I'm asking, if I put pure black pigment on this pale part of skin here, you're telling me that won't go blue? And like 6 comments later, me asking the same thing, he would not admit that it would turn blue. And that's the shit what pisses me off, because if someone took that as gospel and gone, hey man, don't worry, we can go as dark as possible because this jabroni said to me that it doesn't turn blue, now I'll put it on your head, and then that guy might be having a wedding in 2 weeks time and then his head's all ruined. That's the shit what pisses me off. And this is why I'm really glad, Troy, that you're on here, because we've got to sift through all this fake knowledge about there. And like you said, we've not trialed it, we've not tested it, we haven't got a pile of cash to test all these. But it's good to hear from the molecular structure of these pigments and from your perspective. So that's the annoyance what I get, is that these flippant comments can really damage people.
Yeah. And I mean, I assume I know why he's probably avoiding the question as well. And that's because either 1, he knows he's lying, or 2, they haven't tested it enough. So they can't actually stand on those claims necessarily, you know, so it's one of those that like the claim has an asterisk that leads to a whole section in T&C, right? That's, you know, kind of tells you that they're not liable, that if it does turn blue or whatever kind of thing, you know. And in my experience too, like a black that's going to turn blue is going to show more bluish after 6 months, year, 2 years later, you know.
Yeah,
that's probably when you're going to notice that, or you're going to see it, you know, which is, at that point, it's also just how you took care of it, how you healed it too, and how it's settling naturally in your body.
It also depends on the area, right? You're getting it done as well, depending on the thickness of the skin.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's there's so many factors at play really in the whole thing, you know. So I mean, a lot of it, I think, you know, go back to like one of my original points, is I think a lot of it's the lack of technique. So it's trying to throw product at a problem that's really a deeper problem that is a personal one, you know. So it's not knowing how to necessarily apply it as well, and trying to go, well, yeah, I don't know, give me the cheat code, you know. That's what everyone wants in the modern world anyway, right? I don't want to necessarily have to put in the work, but if I do have to, make it easy, you know.
Yeah,
it's it's a quick turnaround for cash kind of thing, you know. And marketing loves to prey on that, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. So that's hey, listen, we only got a little bit of time left. Do we have any final questions for Troy? Mike, do you want?
Oh, can you
quick-
send us
quick
some of the
ones.
gallons of the ink?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd love to actually. It'd be a fun experiment. I
Hell
think
yeah.
I can send you guys some samples to try out, and I'll give you, kind of what the dilution percentages are, and if you're feeling gutsy, try it out. Use it on someone, and I guarantee you're gonna like the results, or you're gonna find that there's no real net difference moving forward with it. I think it's probably the only real thing you're gonna find.
So if I were to,
Paul, you can do a third session on David.
Yeah, I need one more
Yeah,
session.
I was just going to ask a question about. So in your mind, is there a possibility that a carbon-based pigment that can suit all skin tones from pale to really dark, is there a possibility that a pigment can be formulated what doesn't go blue hue over time? Is there?
Yeah.
There is a possibility.
Okay, I'm gonna call you later. We're making some tonight.
Yeah, so we messed around, quite a bit at both the previous company I was with and the current one to figure out what the best source of that carbon black was that wouldn't go black, right? Because this is a problem in the tattoo world as well, right?
Yeah.
It is the old school way was you always used to see stuff coming back, and it's like over time it's looking a little bluish. Shoot, I have tattoos old enough on me that the black is starting to look a little blue, And there's other ones that I have that are equally as old, and I'm like, man, that's still pretty dark, So that is the difference in that carbon black base mixture, So a lot of it has been the hunt to find what is going to look super dark, and that adapts into your heavy black tattooing, your black and gray genre and tattooing in general, the blackout sleeves that you see when people just want to hammer over the whole thing with black. You don't want that to look blue over time. You want that to look dark black. So yeah, there's been a bunch of research and a bunch of time and effort put into making something, that's not going to turn blue over time. I have a giant black square on my thigh just from testing it, And that's the funniest thing too, is in the tattoo world, that's how we would test everything generally. We make a new color or a new mixture, and it's like, well, it's not a tattoo ink if it doesn't tattoo well. That was always, the go-to, at least in my brain. So how do you test that? Tattoo it in someone. If you don't want the liability of tattooing it on someone else, it's going to be one of the people at the company. So there were plenty of us over the year that have worked in this business that have weird little dots on us of testing the pigments out. I got the black square on my leg, it's
got it all over my ankle, bro.
Yeah.
So if
put your money where your mouth is, for me, right? It's, if you're willing to make some claims, then show me it works,
right.
Show me on you that it works, right?
Yeah.
So you would know how to, if anyone were to come to you and say, listen, we want to make something that it's going to look natural. It's going to look like a light shadow of stubble on someone's head. You could do that. You can probably come up with a formulation that could, and that would work all over, everywhere.
Yeah. What could be diluted as well?
Yeah. 100% diluted. Yeah, we could dilute it. We were messing with something about 2 weeks ago that's going to be a kind of like a sienna brown wash, and really, it'll look like hair, if you do it correctly. So there's the possibilities are limitless, more or less.
All right, guys, we're coming out with new ink next week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, all right, guys. Yeah, it was good.
We're
All right,
announcing it.
is everybody gone? Okay.
Yeah.
So
everyone's gone.
Yeah, it's gonna be $200. But it's a 1 ounce.
Oh,
yeah.
You're so generous. That's so generous. 1 ounces. That's generous.
Yeah. It's very generous. Yeah. I assume that also the half ounce thing is nebulous around that you are using smaller amounts of it. And I probably also assuming that it's the shelf stability length of time, because most countries are used within 12 months of open.
It's a bit of a mixture. Some people like the little drop capsules, and some people have pots like myself. Like I grey wash my pigments. And I like to have a bit more in the pigment. And it's like, what I buy is really cheap, so I can I don't care, swish it around. If I drop it, it's no big deal. But if you drop one of these SMP pigments, you're like game over.
It's like gold.
Like, okay, I just spent £64 on that, and I've just lost 3/4 of it because I lost the bottle because it fell between the cracks of the floorboards. That's how
they
small
are tiny. They're very tiny little bottles. Yeah. One of them looks like it was the same thing that you buy like model paints in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like the little acrylics,
Yes.
you know? I mean, I get how you would drop that. It's some of the packaging design is actually really innovative too, but at that rate too, you're also paying for the packaging.
Right.
And would you say the price? So someone selling a pigment that small, would you say the profit margin is like crazy high for someone doing that?
Oh, I don't even want to tell you what it is.
100%.
I've already calculated it in the past. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So if somebody comes up with something and it's legit, it's transparent, it works, it's got years, if not decades of proven results, and you sell it at a fair price, the company's still making profits and people are getting a better, good quality pigment or ink, and they're not breaking the bank. I think that's kind
And
of
not being ripped off.
$29.99. We're still driving Lambos.
Yeah. Now I assume there also is, I know I see it's ending in 5 minutes here, so I won't expound too much. I also assume that most of these manufacturers aren't actual manufacturers, that they are subcontracting or doing a white label project. So their raw margin may not be as good as if they were owning all the equipment and actually manufacturing it themselves.
Alibaba.com.
Yeah. So they're kind of in that, they're the middleman, they're the marketing leg of something they're actually getting produced elsewhere, right? Which very common in the business, but yeah, I mean, that's a factor, but that's not a big enough factor to dictate how much that markup is.
Man,
really.
we can go. I have so many more questions, but we're out of time. We got like 2 minutes left, so let's just
We need a part
Yeah,
two,
we're definitely gonna do a part two if you're up for it, Troy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, call me back anytime. I mean, I'm going to be traveling for about 3 weeks, but anytime past that, I'm golden.
Well, we'll let this one sink in. We'll let the listeners kind of go over it and probably, put a gun to their head thinking about how much money they've lost, and then get them all teased up on this one and just know that there's going to be a part two for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I think a good follow-up too would be like, well, hey, now we drop that bombshell. What is a good other option? Because you don't want people running wild as well in the SMP world or the PMU world. I think that's the biggest fear is they go run wild and they go, well, I'm just going to buy tattoo ink now, not knowing that the viscosity is different. The workability is different, made for, whole body tattooing, or it's just not made necessarily to work like what they're used to or that highly diluted solution. Right. So the last thing we really want is people just racing out and going like, pardon my French here, but going out and fucking people up permanently.
That's not French. That's not French.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's our show.
That's 100% American.
That's American. Yeah. Thanks again, Troy. I appreciate it. Mike, do you want to take us out?
All right, guys. So we'll see you next month?
Next month.
We'll see.
We'll see. But Troy, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for being on our show. Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Should we do
let's
our
come out with the new ink?
At the end of every podcast, we do the sign for no bullshit. This is bull. This is shit. So no bullshit. Come on, Troy. You can get in here. Bullshit.
All right, that's it.
No bullshit. There you go. All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Troy. We'll talk soon, buddy. Thank you.
All right, Troy.